Hi, I'm Hope Williams.
And I'm Blain Lassiter.
And we're here today in Austin, Texas. Thanks for coming, Blain, to talk about the future, past, present, and future of the online ESL industry.
Dun 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 dun!
Is it doomed?
I don't know, Hope. Is it?
Yes. Oh, well, no, we're actually going to talk through the history of the online ESL industry, what's coming next. Is it good? Is it bad? What we should do about it as teachers.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great discussion, and I hope that you can stick with us because it's going to be a wild ride.
Wild.
Oh, and by the way, I want to thank Magic Ears for sponsoring this video.
Thanks, Magic Ears.
Thank you. Bridging cultures.
So, Blain, obviously you've been working in the online ESL industry for some time, and you've also lived in China.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Did you ever think when you were working in that place in China that it would go onto an online platform and it would be such a vigorous business?
I had no idea. I had no idea where the industry was going. I had an inkling that online education was the future, but I didn't know how close it was.
And this was back in what year? About
2015. I also had to learn how to work for a Chinese company.
Okay.
Because I went into it expecting, Americans and Chinese working together, and I thought it wouldn't be like a traditional Chinese company, but in fact it was.
So you were expecting the companies, since they work with so many Americans, to be somewhat Americanized.
Correct.
And that was not the case.
It was not the case. At the center that I worked at, the Chinese and the Americans were really separated. They had separate meetings, so there wasn't really a sense of a collaboration.
Yeah, and do you think that kind of struggle between the two cultures has carried over into the online ESL industry?
It absolutely has, because there obviously has been conflict between teachers and the companies that partner with us. So, Hope, tell me about how you were introduced to the ESL industry.
They were a very young company at the time. So this was back in 2015. The industry was just starting to really kind of, I don't think we really knew what it was yet. And it was just starting to kind of come alive. And the company that I started for is one of the major players in the online ESL industry right now. And at that time, they only had 400 or 500 teachers. It was exciting. It was, I think we could tell it was going to be big, but I don't think that we had any idea at that time how big it was going to be, how it was going to blow up.
Right.
I certainly didn't have any inclination about how many companies there were going to be, because now at this point,
right, because whenever you started, it was just one company.
It's just kind of the one.
How did it feel whenever you started? Like, how was the communication?
Yeah.
Did you feel like that the company? How did you feel the company treated you?
Okay, you would think that with it being so small, that communication, like all of those kind of building blocks were dialed in, but that was not my experience even from day one. I think that from what I've seen from working with Chinese companies now, with having done it for a few years, I think that is a challenge. And now I know, looking back, there were attempts to kind of connect, to hear each other, but it was a struggle. And, I don't know that we ever kind of arrived at a place where we're hearing each other. Maybe now that's starting to happen, but that's 3 years in.
Right.
So skipping ahead, I don't want to skip too far ahead, but skipping ahead to where we are now in the industry, I think some of the younger companies are starting to realize how to lay that foundation culturally now, at the beginning.
Right.
The company that I work for now is, which I work for Magic Ears, of course.
Yes.
Yes, watching the video. But they're trying really hard at the communication.
Yeah.
And the effort that I see and the steps that they've made toward good communication with their teachers is really unprecedented.
Well, do you think that's a result of its predecessors?
I think maybe it is. It's kind of like when you have two siblings and the younger one watches the older one kind of make the mistakes and they learn.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there was some of that going on in China as the companies, young companies are watching the big companies in the areas that they are struggling.
Right.
And certainly when when a teacher moves from one company to the next and brings their complaints or their reasons for leaving, then the new company would hear, okay, this is a big deal. This caused an excellent teacher to leave this company.
Right.
We should make this a priority in our company.
Why do you think that it's such an issue? Why does Chinese companies and teachers have such a hard time collaborating?
That's a good question. I think that we as teachers on this side of it spend a lot of time trying to figure out the answer to that question, to be honest. Where is the missing link on the communication? And we always go to, I think that our default is to always go to culture. It's always to say, well, that must be Chinese culture.
Right.
And I think that I did think that for a while, and definitely there is a degree of culture playing into it. But I also think that it has to do with your bottom line. What's most important to you as a company? Is your priority to hear your teachers? Is it a priority to communicate, or is the priority domination? Right. What is your goal? I think that indicates where money is spent, because everything costs money. Even communication costs money.
Absolutely.
So to have good communication, there has to be an investment in the people that are going to pull that off. I'm not real savvy in industries of all types, and I actually have more experience working with Chinese companies now than I think I do with any other companies. Maybe it's true across the board, but I've seen Chinese companies consistently place emphasis on outcomes. Right. So, for example, can we afford to do this? Can we spend money on this? Well, what is the measurable outcome that we could expect from that? And things like communication, things like morale, it's hard to measure that.
How do you think that they can bridge that gap? We have all this competition, and now there's this power dynamic that exists between these companies and us, that we now can choose which company we work for. Us
having so many options right now in the field, I think that that's where our power as teachers really is. We want better communication, then we demand it. And by demand it, I don't mean we, say, you have to give us good communication, but I invest my time and the slots that I open for bookings with the companies that give me the kind of communication that I want, and the feedback that says, hey, the communication is important to us.
There isn't a case where we don't care, or like we're trying to take advantage of the company in any way. We genuinely want the company to succeed. We want them to see them grow, and we want to be a part of that. In
all
any
the
way we
companies
can.
that I've worked for, all the companies in this industry that I've worked for, I've wanted to succeed. I've wanted to be a part of their success.
Absolutely. And that has always been my intention. That's been your intention. And I think that any teacher can agree to that our intention is for the company to succeed, because we care so much about the students that learn through their platforms.
Yeah. And we want to be part of something big.
Absolutely.
We care about the students. We see the potential of this to be part of
this entire
something
industry.
Big. And not only that, but just building these bridges between the next generation of Chinese people and American people. Like, to imagine what the future will look like in 20 years after virtually every kid in China has an American teacher.
Well, there has never been anything like this in history, where there is this kind of collaboration between two countries, where we can collaborate and our cultures can influence each other. And so you're making a genuine impact on them at that moment, and it can influence them going forward for the rest of their life.
So we're talking about how it's influencing the future generations, right? Like how this entire generation is benefiting from us, but we as teachers, how are we benefiting from contact with these Chinese children?
Right, it's changing our lives too. So has your experience with online ESL changed your perspective on China?
I'm not sure I had a perspective on China before I did this. They are on the other side of the world, and traditionally we kind of separate, Eastern culture and Western culture. And I think the only thing I thought of was that they're so different. I didn't even know what to expect. I certainly did not expect to fall in love with these children, because I had no idea who these children even were.
Oh. When this thing first started, this industry, the online ESL world, everyone was very skeptical of was this sustainable was this safe?
Was it a scam?
Was it a scam? Am I going to get paid?
Yeah.
Is this actually a way that I can make money? It felt like it was too good to be true for a lot of people. Obviously, we can tell now that this is sustainable. This is where we're going into the future. And this has the potential to employ thousands of people in America.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah, it's here to stay.
It's here to stay, and there's competition that is cultivating this industry to become one of the greatest industries, I think, in the world, and most important, because when you really think about it, we are affecting the lives of the world's children, not just Chinese children, but the world's children, because this endless.
And eventually we'll connect children from more than just the two countries. You know, right now we are primarily working in China, but Magic Ears has a view of connecting children from several countries at one time. So in one classroom.
In one class, you can have a Chinese student, a Brazilian student, a Japanese student.
Can you imagine?
It would be...
That's the day I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm already having a blast.
And I think that's one of the great benefits of a 1-on-4 platform, is that you can connect so many different...
Yeah, because in a people. One-on-one classroom, of course, we are connecting with that one student, and that's not to be minimized at all. But when there are 4 from different backgrounds together in one space, and also from different financial backgrounds as well,
because it's not just the elite. With other companies, especially with one-on-one, it is it's unreachable for these kids, because they, in most rural areas, they're so poor, and they just do not have the resources or the capital to take these classes.
Right now, we have Chinese students and maybe a few in a few other Asian countries, but they're going to expand it to where, you know, we have a student from one country and a student from another country.
Right.
As if the Chinese market wasn't big enough in itself, right?
Absolutely. But I think that this is a positive.
But also, as far as for us, business people who are in the business of educating these children, the market is endless.
I mean, think about, we're in a time where you make more money teaching a 25-minute class online from your home than you do at a brick and mortar school.
And you don't have to wear like pants.
The competition is not with students.
Yeah.
As we said,
we'll never run out of students.
We'll never run out of students.
Enough teachers to fill the need. The
teacher power dynamic. The power dynamic for teachers is at an all-time high right now, because the competition is increasing between companies, and we now have that choice of which companies we decide to give our time to. And I think that teachers have to switch their mindset from that brick and mortar, from that, and that they have to realize that they are the commodity, not the students. The teachers are.
Do you think that the Chinese companies realize? Do you think that they realize that there's competition for us?
I mean, you and I didn't even realize that, though, until about 6 or 7 months ago, where we really started to accept that idea that we were in control and that we had the power to decide where we taught, and we realized that
we're a specialized product.
Because at one time the companies were growing so quickly, and there was just like this endless amount of teachers, and we just had to get bigger and bigger, and then we realized there's only so many of us. That's gonna cap.
And do you think that there's kind of a fight for teachers, kind of a a drafting of the teachers?
You can see it in their incentives. The incentives, the referral bonuses, but also the incentives to teach at certain times.
Okay.
It's really high demand spots, and it's those spots that they're having a hard time filling. Because there aren't enough teachers.
There are certain times in the industry that we've seen that there have not been incentives for opening slots. This must have been at a time when there were enough teachers to go around. But then we also see, because we've been around long enough to see the ups and downs, that right now we're at a time where they're incentivizing teachers to open more slots. And this is not just one company.
It's all of them.
This is many companies.
Yeah. Is it good? Is it bad?
What we should do about it.
Well, what are they going to do specifically? I'm talking about in the future. And I personally think that pay. I think that we've
seen it go up.
We've seen it go up, and I can see it going up even more.
Yeah.
Because of the competition, especially as more companies come into the game.
And we have seen that. I know the company that we both worked for prior to Magic Ears had kind of a cap, a maximum amount that you could make. And we've seen Magic Ears kind of have that as a starting point for what teachers can make. So this max is this company's starting point. So
Correct.
we've already seen them adjust, right?
Yeah.
We're going to outpay this other company.
And it's really going to push that up. And so it's a great opportunity for experienced teachers who can make a lot of money in this industry.
Yeah. So I think we're also going to see an improvement in how they communicate with us.
Yes.
And this has been something that's been a long time coming with some companies, but they're starting to finally see, we need an advocate in the United States. We need somebody on the ground. This was even a struggle for a long time, if you remember.
There's a huge disconnect.
A huge
disconnect, and it can be very frustrating for teachers because of the fact that we are hunger to be able to be heard and to be able to express our concerns or our grievances.
And vice versa, to hear from them what they think about our
Absolutely.
work.
We want to become better. We want to improve, but we want constructive feedback, not necessarily you suck and you need to get better. We want to learn how can we become better in a way that can benefit me.
Yes.
And right now there's just not that. So at other companies, like the one we're at with Magic Ears, they definitely are making an effort.
There's lots of communication both ways. And I do remember back in the early days when teachers were saying, how am I doing? I need some feedback. We didn't even have parent feedback back then. We didn't know what the parents thought about us.
They were so resistant.
A rating system. And they did not want to give that to us.
They did not want to give it to us.
The only time we heard from them is if we did a bad job. We tried to kind of adopt this no news is good news way of thinking about it. But we just kind of hungered for that pat on the back. You did a good job. Or, you know what? The only thing holding you back is this one little thing. Can you tweak this and you'll be really successful?
Right.
So Magic Ears has really flipped that on its head.
Yeah.
And they offer us feedback, they offer us interaction. And
I think that that's super helpful for us to become better teachers because everyone has an opportunity to improve.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long I've been in the industry, and I think that you can relate that there are always opportunities for me to improve my craft.
I've definitely gotten negative feedback from both companies.
There's definitely situations where it's invalid. And it's genuinely invalid.
Yeah.
But there are definitely situations where I'm like, you know what? They're right.
They're right.
I messed up. And that's the biggest disconnect is that if I'm not aware of what I need to do to be better, then how can I possibly improve?
Yeah, so communication, we already see that improving from company to company.
Right.
And that is based partly on just the demand for teachers and what we want. So what else are the companies doing as they are growing and as we become more empowered? Where else are we seeing some benefits?
Less regulation. When you and I first started, there were a lot of different policies in place that were very restrictive.
Certain color shirt.
You had to have so many classes.
You had to open a certain number of slots every week.
Yes.
And if you didn't, there were only 2 weeks per year that you could do it. It was considered vacation time.
Right.
Not paid like an employee.
And actually in the contract, you weren't allowed to have 2 weeks consecutive time off.
Yeah.
You had to split it up.
So the flexible job schedule that we were so excited about flexible job schedule, but it wasn't really flexible.
There wasn't a really definition at the time of what we were. Right, we were treated like we were employees, but we weren't, and we're honestly treated as employees when it was convenient to them, like having these policies.
Yeah.
But there was a turning point in the industry whenever that became unacceptable, and so slowly those policies just disappeared. We no longer were required to wear a certain color. We were no longer required to have a certain amount of classes, and I think that every other company has followed suit. Since then, because
as they start up, they've started from where the other companies kind of left off.
And honestly, it benefits the company and it benefits the teachers because the teachers have more control over their business. We are private contractors. We are our own bosses in this situation. If we look at it as they're our employers, then we're giving them power that they
actually don't have. They don't have. Do you see that a lot? Do you see a lot of teachers kind of giving their power over to the companies?
All the time.
Yeah.
And I hear these debates on social media and on other platforms, and I'm trying. It's like you don't realize what power you're giving away.
Not only are they giving away power, but sometimes just an undying allegiance to one company, and that seems unnecessary. And maybe even just a really negative reaction to teachers who work for more than one company.
Right.
But that's perfectly acceptable as independent contractors, our contracts cannot stipulate that we can only work for one online ESL company.
Right. Obviously, the company isn't going to make a lot of effort to educate teachers on
hey, you can work for everyone.
what you can do, because they really obviously want, their motivations are to get you to work for their platform.
Yeah. So the future's looking better for all of us as online ESL teachers in all the ways that we discussed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about the far future? What do you think is the far future of the industry? Artificial intelligence
is going to take over the world and steal your jobs.
They took our jobs.
10 years ago, we couldn't comprehend what our place would be today. What's made this possible is technology. And so if you want to look far into the future is going to be AI. And now a lot of people, when they hear AI, they freak out.
I've seen a lot of teachers actually scared about that right now.
And obviously AI is in development pretty much in every ESL company right now.
As it is in every education company. It's not particular to online ESL.
Right. And I think that this fear of, that it's going to replace our jobs is a little irrational, because it's so far off into the future, but it is something that we should discuss. And I think that it definitely will have a positive impact for the students. It'll have a positive impact for the industry as a whole.
Everybody looks at AI as, oh no, it's this big, terrible thing that's coming one day. What we don't realize is that we are already using AI in our classrooms. Our online ESL companies are already using AI, just in some simple ways that they can measure the students' responses and see what they respond to best. But they're not using that to get rid of us. They're using that to say, you know what, we've noticed that this particular teaching style has a better response, and then they're passing that training on to us.
I think it's an exciting future. I think it's something that we necessarily shouldn't fear.
Yeah.
I think we should be aware of it, but ultimately, in the end, we're going to have to embrace it, like we've had to embrace every other technology that's affected every industry on Earth.
So that's in the future, but for the present, what should we do?
Well, right now is honestly the greatest opportunity for apply now. For anybody interested in the ESL industry, in education, because you have the greatest opportunity available to you. Right.
It's exploding. Right. You can tell that by all the companies that are popping up all over the place. And them raising the pay and paying for more incentives.
Right. So if you're interested,
it's time.
Right now.
It's time.
Get on board.
Yeah. Sign up today.
Right now. Like, there's a button that you can press that says apply now.
Apply now. You should click that link. No, but not only get involved in the online ESL industry and start gaining that experience, but also, I think it's really important to vote. I kind of think of it as voting for the company that you want to succeed. Right? Like, I want a company that respects me. I want a company that hears me, communicates with me. And by working for that company, whether it be smaller, more inexperienced, or whatever it may be, if I vote for that company by giving them my hours, giving them my time, signing up with them, that's the future.
Yeah, right.
And I want the future of the industry. We want the future of the industry to be kind to teachers and to listen to teachers.
We want to work together. We need them as much as they need us.
Yeah.
And we want to succeed together. The reason why we've chosen to devote a lot of our time to this company, they have a great ability to listen and to ask for advice, to be receptive, because they also know that the key is their teachers. And they're taking a lot of steps that I've witnessed.
Yeah.
That they're trying to bridge that gap between their staff and the culture and us. And
by being a part of Magic Years, we're helping to build policy for the future.
I'm honestly excited about Magic Years. I'm excited for the continued innovation that they are
leading the way in the innovation as far as a platform. I haven't seen anything like that.
Absolutely. And on that note, we made another video talking about why we decided to risk everything whenever we were already successful at another company. We were already secure at another company, and we decided to move our attention and our focus and our energy to Magic Years.
Yeah.
Everything.
Why did we do that, Blain?
It's turned out pretty good for us.
Turned out pretty good.
There's no regrets. I think that we made the right choice.
Yeah.
It was scary in the beginning.
Oh, I have no regrets about it. And it has exceeded my expectations, but we don't want to give too much of that away. So go click that link and watch that video on the official Magic Ears YouTube channel.
Yeah, and we will see you there. Bye!